Across the UK, across continental North America, and around the world on the internet, by webcast and by podcast, my name is Howard Hughes, and this is the return of the Unexplained. Thank you for keeping the faith with my little show here, which seems to be growing amazingly. Lots and lots of emails coming in. Great email traffic. Thank you very, very much for your emails. I'm going to mention some of you soon. I do get to see every email, and of course I react and act upon each of those emails. Thank you. They're vital to what we do here. I like to think of the show as being interactive, and as I have said before, the nice thing is, if you go to the website, www.theunexplained.tv, and send me an email, you know that I am going to get to see it. It won't go to somebody in some production department somewhere and get forgotten, which is what happens in some broadcast outlets, we have to say. The website, www.theunexplained.tv, designed by Adam Cornwell, and seems to be booming right now. Please visit the website if you haven't, and if you'd like to make a donation, thank you so much. The money is vital to keep this work going, and if you've made one recently, a number of people have, thank you very, very much for caring about this show. Let's get to some of your emails now. The last show we did, I think, was a very important one about Hurricane Sandy. Had a great deal of response about that cataclysm that entered some people's lives and have changed certain lives forever, it seems. The most recent email I got was from Grilloink, who's in Brooklyn. Hope you came through it okay. Also a New Yorker who is actually originally a Los Angelino, James Sklar. Thank you for your email. I know that you came through it all okay. A man in Japan, originally from New York, hearing this show and telling me that this was the only way that he could get information on what it was like for real people there, and a discussion of the climate change issue. That was good to get. New listener Ed Puckett, thank you for your email. Patrick, thank you for yours. John thinks that I should do a show soon about the Illuminati. Of course, we have talked about that with David Icke, but we will return to the subject. Steve Payne, thank you for your email. Julian Hall suggesting Amrit Goswami, a very interesting man, and I've tried to track his people down. They tell me he's in Brazil now, but it looks like we're going to get him on. Jim Fisher emails me with a great anecdote about the billionaire Howard Hughes. Apparently Howard Hughes went to a business meeting, and if I'm telling this right, Jim, stood up and said, "I'm going to London," and then disappeared. Whether he went to London, I don't think we know. But strange and brilliant man. Anna Boo in Australia. Anna, thank you for your email. David in America suggesting a show about EVP and spirit box research. I know Art Bell was very big about spirit box research and had a guest on or two about that. Ben McGowan suggesting Jordan Maxwell. Ben, good call. I do need to be doing Jordan Maxwell, you're right. Joe and Neil Catamole. Hello, Joe and Neil. They fall asleep. At least Joe does during my podcasts. Are they that riveting, Joe? Anyway, nice to have you both there. Burke Brunson, who thinks that I should be on an American show called Coast to Coast AM. Burke, it's not for the want of trying. Stickman in Mobile, thank you for your nice comments. Liam McCallin in Ireland. Tom Townsend. Nick. Nick emailed and said he liked Richard Lenny. A lot of you did. The man using night vision technology to spot apparent UFO dogfights in the sky. Donald Worthington, hello. Chris Jimmerson, thank you for your email. Sue Brook, good to hear from you. Brian McCord in America. And George with a first email from the Sunshine Island of Cyprus. Also, Will in Liverpool, thank you for your email, mate. And Kathy emailing about HARP and the subject of weather control. We have done weather control, but we will get back to that subject. But I have done a show about weather wars with the man who runs the website weatherinfo.com, I believe it's called. But anyway, check back on my past shows. You will see that we've talked about that. But HARP, this over-the-horizon radar thing that's caused all kinds of problems, yes, we need to get into. I've had a few emails as well about my tinnitus problem that, as you know, has dogged the months from, March, April this year right up to now, and meant for a good long period I couldn't work. I'm now back trying to get work, and hopefully we'll be able to. But I think a few of you got the impression that I got a cure for tinnitus. I haven't. I haven't found one because I don't think there is one. But what they do teach you, and sometimes what you have to learn just by reading about this thing, this ringing in the ears. Mine came to me after a virus earlier this year. and has caused me tremendous problems, you learn ways to try to live with it. And I think that with the state of knowledge at the moment is the best we can do. But I'm also investigating the possibility of some biofeedback devices, because I've heard they can be quite useful. And if you've tried one, let me know. This time round, we're going to talk to Anthony Peake. Now, Anthony Peake is a British writer, a man who's been quite prolific recently and has been doing a lot of traveling and speaking and videos. And he talks about what a lot of us would regard as the good stuff. Things like life after death, out-of-the-body experiences, near-death experiences, the nature of time, and crucially, consciousness, which more and more people seem to be studying. What is consciousness? How does it affect this thing that we think is a life that we're leading? So Anthony Peake in the UK we'll get on to in just a moment. As I say, thank you very much for your emails and your support. www.theunexplained is the website. Please go to the website, register a hit on it. That's vital, however you're hearing this show. And if you'd like to make a donation, that'd be great. Thank you very much to Martin, by the way, for the theme tune. Martin, do get in touch. Maybe we should revise the theme tune at some point, but people do seem to like it, even after a couple of years, which is good. Okay, crossing now to Anthony Peake in the UK. And Anthony, thank you very much for coming on The Unexplained.
I'm absolutely delighted to be on your show, Howard. I've been looking forward to this for so long.
Well, we both have, haven't we? Because we had some communication problems back in the summer. They are now resolved. So we can now talk in crystal clear digital quality, which is really nice. Over the months that we haven't spoken since our first contact, I've had even more emails about you. And it seems to me that you're very much an up-and-coming writer. You seem in a way to have grabbed the spirit of the time. The things that you're talking about seem to be the things, especially in this year of 2012, seem to be the ones that have grabbed people's, for want of a better word, consciousness.
It does seem to be that case. It's one of the things that I've looked back over the years and always thought, if I'd have written my books earlier, would it have been better for me in the sense I would have been a younger man? But I then look back and think, well, no, the way in which I can communicate using the web and various other broadcasting tools is the way of getting messages across. And indeed, I was surprised last week. I was over in Zagreb in Croatia doing a double book launch. And I was staggered that the amount of TV stations and radio stations that were literally queuing up to interview me. And indeed, my publishers and myself were quite surprised when we did the book launch in the centre of Zagreb last Wednesday night. We were turning people away. We had over 250 people turn up, which was simply staggering. And I think it's because people relate to what I write about because they can relate directly to the experiences they have in their lives. And all I'm trying to do is structure those experiences and try to make sense of them and coming up with a philosophy or an explanation as to what these things are really about.
You told me you had a great response in Zagreb. I don't doubt that at all. And in other countries. Do you find it's a bit of a struggle in this country? I know that you've done things like you've spoken at the famous paranormal bookstore Watkins, which is opposite the place where I used to work until very, very recently, off the Charing Cross Road. Is it harder here in the UK?
To a certain extent it is. But it's the old argument, isn't it, about people never really recognise you in your own backyard. And to a certain extent that has been true. I mean, for instance, I had over 300 people turn up to hear me speak in New York, 4 years ago. Whereas here, I mean, the largest audience I've had here has probably been about 150 or 200. And I think it's because I don't know whether it's necessarily that the British are not open to these ideas. It is just simply that it's just much harder to break into the mainstream here than it probably is in many other countries.
Do you know, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of this is about skepticism, and the skepticism is not among the people. You've only got to go back through the emails that I receive every week here. Go back through the back catalogue of emails, and you'll see that there are many people in the UK who are very interested in these things. The problem is the gatekeepers, the people who control the media, the people who control publishing, the broadcast media in particular. There is an innate skepticism about all things, and it's good to be skeptical, and I hope that I always will be as a journalist. But I think if the skepticism goes to the point where you close those gates, or you make those gates less easy to open for some people than others, compared with others, that is when we start to have a problem. And I think that's where we are in the UK. In America, I think they're more open-minded. I have many, many listeners in America, and I think in other countries. But I think in the UK, it's not the public, but I think we have a problem with our media.
Very much so. Not only that, I think we have a problem with academia as well. I mean, for instance, last month, I was invited up to give a lecture at Edinburgh University Philosophy Society. They approached me, and then they contacted me a few days before the event was about to take place to turn around and say, sorry, you can't come and talk because we're not allowed to have you. We're not allowed to give you platform. And I thought, good Lord, this is amazing when you think that when I was a student, approaching 40 years ago now, if we'd have been told by the authorities and the university authorities we couldn't have a speaker at our own society, there would have been a riot. And whereas these guys just accepted it. And I think the problem is individuals like me are a danger. And the reason I'm a danger is I'm not a new ager. In other words, I'm not saying I'm channeling this information from the planet Tharg. I'm not talking to 30,000-year-old Atlantean priests. I'm not doing any of that. All I am is somebody who's pulling together hard science. And this is the thing I stress here. There is nothing I don't write about that you won't read about in the pages of Scientific American and New Scientist. But the difficulty is that people many people in this country are stuck in a scientific paradigm that is 110 years old. You know, they're still taught Newtonian physics, which is important. I totally agree, because Newtonian physics is what makes the world around us work. But effectively, there's a whole world of quantum physics that people simply reject because it just doesn't make rational sense. And of course, the problem with quantum physics is it has again been hijacked by the stranger fringes of the New Age movement as well, and been misinterpreted.
Well, the problem with them is that they will seize on anything like quantum physics or any new idea to say, okay, this is it. Let's all get on board, lads. Let's back this. And you can't do that. If you're trying to be rational and objective, you have to stand back from all things, including quantum physics. A couple of years ago on radio, I had a conversation with Michio Kaku, the famous physicist, scientist, man of media, and we talked a lot about quantum physics, and he's great at putting things in language that ordinary people can understand, and he just basically put it in a way that I got. He said, this will change everything. It will allow us to do things that we didn't think we could do before. They'll be smaller, faster, lighter, better. We will work on a plane that we have not been able to function at before. Now, I understood that. That crossed over into the mainstream for me.
No, absolutely. The thing is as well, though, what I find peculiar is the way in which, for instance, I've noticed now that the mass media in the last 2 weeks have been full of articles about Stuart Hamerhoff and Roger Penrose's hypothesis, which is called OR. And this is a model of applying quantum physics to the structures of the brain and how indeed we generate consciousness. Now, what I find amazing is I think it was the Daily Mail or one of the popular newspapers picked this up and ran with it as if it was brand new news. Now, I wrote about OR in my very first book that came out 7 years ago. And it's suddenly all over the news. And yet I was writing about it 7 years ago. And, you know, certain people were interested in what I was writing about, but not a great deal. I also cite the example of there's a guy called Anton Zeilinger, who is a professor of physics at the University of Vienna. The work this guy has been doing with subatomic particles, you would not believe. You know, he's been applying some of the latest ideas in particle physics and making them work in terms of applications, and it's simply incredible. He has been able to show that there's something called wave-particle duality, when a particle can be a wave unless it's observed, and then it becomes a point particle. And he's been doing this not only with electrons and photons, but he has shown that large atoms like buckyballs, Buckminster fullerene, which is 60 atoms in size, these things are waves until they are observed by a conscious observer or they are measured, and then they become a point particle.
Is this the idea, and I think I did see something about this, but not very much, that an object can be in two places at once?
Correct. Yes, it's the objects can be in two places at the same time. Not only that, but objects can actually immediately communicate with each other immediately across any distance.
Now, if you extrapolate that to what we all know sometimes happens in our own lives, then suddenly rationality as we've known it goes right out of the window.
Oh, totally. That's the whole problem with